I want to talk to you a little bit about your writing assignments for the class. We've had several essays, and I keep seeing some reoccurring problems. Basically, I try to comment on everything that I can find in the essay, and that's basically to help you write better, and it's preparing you for your term paper, which the due date for that's getting really close, and I'm not seeing a lot of changes for the majority of students in how you're writing and the mistakes that you're making. So I wanted to address a few of these issues. One of the first things is prepositional phrases. I'm finding a lot of them not separated like they should be with commas. For instance, we have the sentence that I made here: with the advent of new dating technologies, it is much easier to verify that archaeological finds are consistent with biblical stories. Okay, if you take out the with the advent of new dating technologies, you have a completely independent sentence. Um, the sentence here: it is much easier to verify that archaeological finds are consistent with biblical stories, stands alone. Uh, but you want to start this with a prepositional phrase. You could end it, no comma, anything, but sometimes rhetorically you like to start things with prepositional phrases. It sounds good and reads well. So what you want to do when you start it or you insert a prepositional phrase within a sentence, you want to separate that with commas. Um, a good way to pick out your prepositional phrases, what a preposition is something that distinguishes the place of something, like with, it's being with, or at, or beside, or different things that cause a preposition. Next thing is run-on sentences. I'm surprised at how many of these I'm actually finding. Uh, in the examples here, you can see that we have, if you read the sentence and you take out the connecting words, the commas, and everything, and make it in, you could make this into 4 sentences. The Torah is comprised of 5 books of the Bible. That is one sentence alone. So you could actually put a period there and start your next sentence. They are traditionally thought to be written by Moses. That's how I've done in the example here. And then the second set is, however, Moses would not have been able to write about his own death at the end of Deuteronomy. Therefore, he could not have completely written each book. What you want to do, you don't want to put more than 2 sentences together with a connecting word and making them into a compound sentence. A compound sentence only consists of 2 independent sentence clauses. So reread your sentences after you write them. Make sure that they're not tied together, and make sure it's not multiple sentences tied together over 2 sentences. So you just want a total of 2 sentences combined to make one sentence. Hopefully from this example you'll be able to see how you can make some changes with your run-on sentences. Alright, comma splices. What a comma splice is when you're trying to put 2 independent sentences together with a comma. You're just using that comma to put it together, and that's not correct grammatically. You see here, the Old Testament book of Psalms was mostly written by David. That's a sentence in and of itself. Many of the Psalms are poetry. That's a sentence itself too. And the incorrect way is just put a comma between the 2 sentences. I put 3 correct ways you could write that. You could make it into 2 sentences, as in the first example. Or you could separate it with, or not separate, but combine it with a connecting word like and. Then the third way, which I think for this one, the best way would be a semicolon, because the sentences are so relevant to each other and it kind of flows together. So putting a semicolon between them, that's probably the easiest way to avoid a comma splice. Another thing is using connecting words to start sentences, like and, but, also, so, or. These are simplistic words that are not very formal. Additionally, however, in addition, nonetheless, therefore, conversely, uh, nevertheless, on the other hand, those are some much better ways to begin a sentence when you're wanting to contrast it with the previous sentence, or when you want to add to the previous sentence. All right, a little word about the term papers or essays. It's one of the things I've found to be consistent, is, and I kind of understand this, especially with the ministry that most of you are in, or all of you are in, the mission. It's easy to want to sermonize and to make everything into a sermon. But a term paper or an essay, when you're writing formal writing, it is not a sermon, unless you're told to prepare a sermon, or you're in a sermon writing class, or you've got a special assignment in a class where they ask you to write a sermon and to apply. You can actually do that at the end of a paper, a term paper or something like that. You could have a section on application, how it would apply to life. In our term paper, that's probably not a good idea, because the term paper is going to be on the whole book instead of just a section of a book of the Bible. Another thing is, I've had a few people address essays as if they are a letter. You know, they greet me, they talk about different things, and have formalities like you would have in a letter. It's not something you're writing to me, it's something you're writing for a class. You know, you want it to sound educational. And kind of tied in with that, it's not a conversation. Saying comments like, well, as you know, or something like that, as if we're having a conversation with each other. You want to make sure that the language is not conversational in that way. Part of that, I'm going to mention in a minute, is actually on our next slide here, is the second point. Do not use I, we, our, us, you all, you guys, those kind of words. That's the first person singular or plural, or the second person singular or plural. You'll want to speak or write in the third person. You know, when one reads the Bible, or, you know, when a person reads the Bible, you'll want to speak in terms like that, instead of using I, we, our, you know, and so on. The other thing is, I'm finding a lot of contractions. Contractions do not fit well into formal writing. This may seem unusual to you, but it's something that you do learn as you go throughout your higher education experience, that contractions are not acceptable. As you read more formal things, more academic writing, contractions just do not fit into there. Another thing, this sounds pretty simplistic, but misspelled words. An exceptional synonym or homonym that are actually spelt right. A homonym would be, a synonym wouldn't really count, but a homonym that's actually spelt right, but it means the wrong thing. Like if you're talking about, for instance, the Sea of Reeds in the Old Testament, and you spell it R-E-A-D-S instead of R-E-E-D-S, that's a little bit more understandable. But when you're misspelling words straight out, with word processors, with spell check and all this, that's not understandable at all. I look forward to reading you all's term paper. Please pay close attention to these things that I presented. Go back and look at your essays. There's comments in there showing you where you've made some of these mistakes, for those of you that have not done so well in your essays.